2018, I bought a Chevy Bolt. I'm trading that Chevy Bolt now in on a Tesla. Now, I kind of wanted to explain, I'll go into why I bought the Tesla I bought, probably in another video. But in this one, I wanted to talk about what made me upset with the Bolt. I don't want to say the Bolt was a bad car. It was well designed. It was fun to drive. It handled pretty good. I mean, mostly handled good because it's got a battery 6 inches off the ground. But it was a generally good car, but there were a bunch of disappointments in that car. Now, when I trade this thing, I will be getting less than half of what I paid for it. I knew that when I bought the car. Anytime you have a $7,500 rebate on a car, that makes the used market much smaller, or much less money anyway. When I bought my 2018, there were virtually no used Bolts for sale at all, unless I wanted one that was wrecked or something. So I paid around $39,000 for it. It was a Premier and so on. At this point, in 2020, its value is around $17,000. And that's actually fairly close to it. I've had it up for sale and so on. But I'm going to trade it in to Tesla. They'll give me $17,200 for it. And in my state, that reduces the sales tax I pay by about a little less than $2,000. So, okay, I'm gonna take a big hit on it. I'm okay with the big hit. At some point, I'll probably come in and tell you reasons why I'm okay with such a big hit. That's not usually the way I work. But let's get into the nuts and bolts of why I'm having a problem with the Bolt. The Bolt was designed in 2016. That's when it was set up. Okay. Started out selling in 2017. EV charging was more in its infancy then than it is now. A lot of the chargers, their maximum charging rate was, they said 50 kW, usually meant about 40 kW. And the Bolt could take advantage of that, kind of. The Bolt would charge at a maximum of 55 kilowatts, but yeah, it took a little while for it to get up there. Once you hit 52%, it dropped down and it dropped and it dropped and it dropped. That's in the summer. In the winter, entirely different ball game. 17 kW was the max. That made charging at some place like Electrify America extremely expensive. I think my highest rate on Electrify America was 86 cents a kilowatt, because they charge by the minute. Okay, that was a problem. And at that time, and of course I knew when I bought this 2018 Bolt that there was going to be a lot of changes in the electric market in a very short time. So I knew charging was going to change. I also knew Tesla was around. I really didn't think I could buy a Tesla. I didn't think I really had the money to do it, and I wasn't real familiar with the vehicles at the time. But I picked up the Bolt. I thought it was probably going to be maybe my last car. I'm 73 years old. Eventually, I'll be too old to drive anymore. Anyway, charging rate on it has always been wimpy. You know, where Tesla, at this point, Tesla can charge, we'll say effectively 200 kilowatts up to about 50% charge, and the Bolt charges at 50 to 55 if you're lucky in the summertime. I'll reference a couple of videos I did about my fight with General Motors to get it to charge faster in the wintertime. That was another gripe of mine. At 17 kW, in order to get that changed to where it would charge at about 40 kW, I had to literally beat on the Chevrolet dealer with a club. They did not want to do it. They were not interested in doing it. This is a typical legacy car manufacturer. When it's out the door, they want to sell you a new one. They don't want to fix it. They don't want to do nothing to it. Okay, just my opinion. Okay, the next one, charge rate, not so good. Didn't keep up. Wasn't a lot of places to charge it. That's better now. Better places to charge now. One of the things they had on the 2018, had it on 2017, 2018, was Hilltop Reserve. Now, what that's all about is if you charge your battery to 100%, you don't get regenerative braking until you lose some battery charge. You got to lose about 4 or 5% before you really start getting it back. And they said, well, if you charge it to 87%, that was Hilltop Reserve, the only option. You could charge to 87%, and you wouldn't have that. The idea being you were on top of a hill, where you lived on top of the hill, and you're going down the hill, and you want to regenerate. Okay. That was a really dumb way to set that up. Almost everyone knows that charging a lithium-ion battery to 100% is really not the best idea. They don't like being charged that high, and the life of the battery is suspect if you continually do that. So most people charge them at about 80%. Or 90% now. Looks like 90% is becoming a number now. They didn't have any options except Hilltop Reserve, so that's what I had to use. Well, 2019, they come up with a little turkey thing that you could pick what level you want. You could do 80% and 70% and so on like that. Okay, now that brings up over-the-air updates, which, yes, General Motors, we're going to, this thing's all dialed in. We are going to have over-the-air updates. Just like Tesla. Yeah. There is no over-the-air updates. And in fact, I found out that the only over-the-air updates that could be made were to the entertainment system. There's no way they would update this thing. I guess they've never heard of computers, because computers do this all the time. And that Hilltop Reserve thing, switching that over with, there's no hardware in that. That's all software. Okay, they just didn't do it. Didn't do it. Okay, cruise control. I had cars with adaptive cruise control, and I was in love with it. And in fact, the Tesla adaptive cruise control is spectacularly good. Chevy doesn't even offer it, not even on the highest level car, which is what I bought. So that was kind of a downer. I was interested in the vehicle having some driver safeguards, automatic braking. It didn't have that, unless you're going under 45, and I've never tested to see if I actually do have it. It does scream at you if you're coming up too fast on a car, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm okay with that. Okay. They even have, because they will scream at you when you're coming up in a car too fast, they've got radar for the adaptive cruise control. They just don't have adaptive cruise control. They have all the sensors for it, they just don't have it. Okay. Another thing that was kind of a disappointment. I should mention a little bit about battery size and range. Okay, I knew what the range was on that car when I bought it. It wasn't as much as I wanted. It was what I thought I could afford to buy. And I had some high hopes that there would be something like Tesla does occasionally. They will bump up their existing cars in the range without any increase in the size of the battery through software. That never happened, of course. Over-the-air updates, right? Not going to happen. The range was about what I expected it to be. It's in the summer, no heating or cooling. That 238 is pretty close. In the winter, of course, it drops mostly below 200, which effectively means if you're taking a trip, you are going to have to charge that car, unless it's really cold or really hot, which is going to be worse. You're going to have to charge that car between 100 and 130 miles between charges. And then, of course, it's going to be about an hour to charge it. A little disappointing there, but I kind of knew that was coming. And when I was talking about over-the-air updates, this just brought up something that just happened recently. They recalled the Chevy Bolt for battery fires. Okay, everybody has battery fires. I don't care who you are, you have battery fires. It's starting to light fires underneath the back seat, which is actually in the battery compartment, but it's underneath the back seat. And they've told everybody to go to Hilltop Reserve or go to 80% on 2019, 2020. You can drop it down that way. And they have also said that the dealers will set the cars so that they won't go above, I think, 90% charge. And they're going to recall the cars to do that. Guess what? An over-the-air update would have done that. Now, General Motors is going to spend, a service tech is going to spend probably an hour to 2 hours on it. The administration costs are going to be incredibly high because they've got to track every one of these dang cars until they get that stupid thing in there. And if they had done over-the-air updates, they'd had the guts to do over-the-air updates. They'd have done it with an over-the-air update. It would have cost them hardly anything. Now, we haven't fixed the battery in those things yet. That's my opinion is they're going to have to replace the battery packs. So, but anyway, that's another another video. It's got lots of cameras. If you get the Premier, yeah, it's got 4 cameras around the outside, and you can get a view of everything around you. And I thought that was really cool, except it really wasn't that useful. Like, oh, you can see everything around you and stuff. Well, the rear camera's really good. And the front camera's kind of neat because if you're driving through a little parking lot under 5 miles an hour and some kid runs in front of your car, I guess you can see him better, although I probably would see him anyway. But the cameras, they're really low quality. This is not 4K, I can tell you that for sure. It's pretty low quality, and I haven't found it to be of a lot of value. Now, the rear view mirror thing is cool because you can have a regular rear view mirror just sitting up there like normal, and then if you flip the little doohickey that usually dims the mirror, it changes it to a camera so that anything that's in your back seat that might be blocking your view is not blocking your view anymore. And it's kind of cool. And it's wide angle, so you can see cars that are coming up on you. The only thing that's a real problem with it is, and it's just me, I wear trifocals. It's blurry. There's no two ways about it. The regular mirror works great, but the camera mirror doesn't. For me. So, yeah. It does have a little washer, though. If you turn on the windshield washers, it washes off that rear camera. I thought it was cool. I don't think Tesla's got anything like that. The suspension on the car. It has cheap car suspension, which is modified by the fact that the battery's low. I've told you, corners pretty good. I can push it pretty hard on corners, and it does pretty well. Bumps in the road, not so good. But, but it's a cheap car, and so it's got cheap suspension. One of the things I really like about the car is the regen. Regen, where I'm putting power back in the battery. That works for me. I'm kind of a tech guy, not kind of a tech guy, I am a tech guy. Not necessarily computer tech, but mechanical, electrical tech. If you put it in D, it acts like it's any old electric or any old car that has an automatic transmission. And where that's kind of nice in snow, I don't like it at any other time. So I usually put it in L, which is not low. And it's supposed to look like a regular transmission shifter. You know, it's got a little shifter in the floor. Okay. L is the position you use when you want to use one pedal drive. And of course, one pedal drive is great. It's almost intuitive to operate. It probably took me a couple of days to get really used to it, but I was almost used to it in about not 2 hours, probably less than that, probably a half hour driving. But the Bolt has the best regen I've seen on any of these vehicles. It's very strong. You just let off that throttle a little bit and it slows right down. If you're slowing down a little too slow, it's got a paddle on the steering wheel that you can pull it, and it'll augment that even farther. Now, of course, I like it because it's putting power back in the battery. And there will never be a brake job on those cars. There shouldn't. If there is a brake job, there's something wrong with the way you're operating. So that's really good. I really like that. And I don't think the Tesla is going to be quite as good that way. I've driven the Tesla Model 3 and an S too. And the S was pretty good. The 3 I didn't think was quite as good. But they have modified the 3 since that time. So it may be better. But the braking is really good. Traction control. It has traction control. But it really doesn't work very good. It's just kind of hokey. I'm spinning tires all the time in that silly thing. And I just don't think it does a good job. Navigation. Okay. I don't know why General Motors did this. I guess it's a cost-saving thing. There's no navigation on the car. You can't get it at any price. You have to use your phone. Which I didn't really have too much of a problem with when I first started fooling with the thing. Because you're familiar with the way your phone GPS works. But it's kind of a pain. You got to plug the phone in and to get your navigation to work and stuff. And so it's never going to be really integrated. That's where Tesla really shines, is where they integrate all that stuff together. One other thing, well, still got a couple of things to go. The Bolt it's got a lot of space in that thing. I have not tried it, but I think I could put a washing machine in the back of that thing. I don't really want to try that, but there's a lot of space there. I put a lot of big old boxes that doesn't look like they'd ever fit in there, and it's got a lot of space. Now, the price you pay for that, it is kind of a little sport ute thing, which I'm not a sport ute nut, but that was the only way it came. And the bad thing about the sport ute part is it's got a lot of wind resistance. It's like 0.32, and the Tesla is around 0.23, which is actually a really big difference. And they slip through the air at higher speeds much better. There's a couple more things. full self-driving, autopilot. There's nobody got anywhere close to Tesla on this. Cadillac's got a system out, but Chevy Bolt doesn't have anything like that. Now they kind of say, well, yeah, we've got lane departure, blah blah. Good grief, that is so. It's so subtle and so inaccurate that it doesn't do anything. And of course you can't let go of the steering wheel, the thing freaks out. If I'm driving down the road and I've got my stay in the lane thing, and I let it drift over, it hits the line before it corrects. It's just wimpy and inaccurate as heck. It just does, it's useless. Now it does have a sensor for sensing people, which 1 out of 3 people it does sense. But it don't sense no more than that. It senses a car in front of you, sees that. Generally, it's pretty good at that. It has cross traffic warning. I ain't trusting that because it's not very good. I would say 6 out of 10 times I can trust it. Maybe 7 out of 10. The other times it misses it. The last thing I've mentioned, charging the Chevy Bolt, finding a charger for it, getting one to work, and getting out of there in some kind of reasonable time just doesn't happen. Now, most of the time we don't charge in these charging machines. And part of the reason we don't charge them is because it's so dang terrible to use. I've got RFID cards, most of which don't seem to work about half the time. They're supposed to take a credit card. They won't take the credit card. Nothing works. Sometimes I get the app to work. Electrify America, I've got the app to work some. But I end up phone calling every one of these guys. Well, not everyone, but I'm driving my daughter's Model 3. I go to a Tesla supercharger and I plug the silly thing in and it charges it. It also directed me to it, which Chevy is trying to do now. They're in beta on that. But this car will direct me to it. It'll actually even drive me most of the way. And when I back up to it and I plug it in, it starts charging. It doesn't say, it isn't going to work this time. Call us up and see if we can figure out why it won't work. I have no idea why these charging stations are set up this way. We've got gas pumps everywhere that you'll put the card in and start charging or start gassing your car up. It's ridiculous. Tesla has that figured out. Nobody else does. Okay, those are my gripes with the Bolt. I have not received my Tesla Model S yet, which I will in a few days. I'll be going over things I like about it and things I don't like about it and make some more comparisons. I'm not going to be able to compare the Bolt because I am trading it in on the Tesla. Anyway, that's it on this one.